started recording the meeting, which means you need to be visible and audible if at all possible. Format's the same as the last time. I can't see everyone. I thought I could, but I'm not seeing everybody. I'm not seeing as many people as it says are on, even in gallery view, but that's okay. Format's the same as last time. How many of you were here last time? Okay, so the major percentage of you, so it kind of runs the same. Those of you who are not here, I just kind of need to explain the rules and how this all works. This is a participatory session. I will not have PowerPoints. I will not teach. Let's see, somebody just, hello, Erica, how are you? Muted.
Oh, sorry. I'm good. I'm going to go help Tina sign in real quick.
Perfect, because I was missing her already. So go help her get in and we'll get going. But you guys were here last time, so you need to know the format rules. But
okay, give me 1 second.
You must remain visible and audible for the entire session in order to get credit. Chrissy, I understand you're having trouble. So you, like I said, you're free to participate in sharing these people's wisdom, but we unfortunately will not be able to give you credit. But that's okay. We're not here for the credit. You guys are here for the education. So I appreciate that. Nobody gets right back. Most people don't get to level 3 and worry about the hour-and-a-half credit. At this point, you're worried about learning stuff. So if that's okay, Christy, as long as you understand the rules, we'll be good to go and we'll leave you on. All right. Here's how this works. Good girl. Christy just told me I was right. She was here for the wisdom. See? So impressed. How this works is you guys are running this meeting. Kenneth, thank goodness you had me worried. I was like, I'm gonna have to call Houston and ask where Kenneth is. And if he's banging out on me again because he's nervous. I thought, uh-oh, he chickened out. It's like, I know I have to keep on you to make sure you keep going because you keep wanting to bang out.
As quickly as possible.
No, between me and your wife, you're in trouble. You can't go.
I know.
I need her phone number. We need to make sure.
Look, it's unlisted.
Bummer. Anyway, this is a participatory session. This is not my session. This is your session. You guys did a great job last time. I was so impressed. I bragged to everybody about how this went last time and how intelligent y'all are and how much that you guys took over and ran this session, which is exactly what these sessions are meant to do. This is the second of the 4 parts to the first part of the exam. So once we get this one, got 2 more to do in the next 2 months, and then A will be finished and in the books. I know some of you, how many of you are planning to test in either, do we have a test next week or in September in the Gulf Coast area?
I test next week.
Okay, cool. I'll be there. And then we have Mara just scheduled a test and she was so eager they wanted to schedule 2. She's like, we want to do this so bad. We want 2 tests. And so I know North had some coming up. I just got out of Amarillo. So everybody's got the opportunity and we're ready to go to give you guys whatever it is you need. So, all right, we're going to start. Like I said, the rules, you have to stay audio, you have to stay visual in order to receive credit. But everybody has read the book and answered the questions and know where we stand from there, correct? As I told you last time, how the books were picked, we spent I think 3 separate weekends in hotels reading books and trying to figure out which ones would best serve the purpose. And this one was near and dear to my heart when we did this. Integrity was the one I fought for and wasn't going to give up on. This was probably the second most important to me. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got some things out of it. I like the grandma parts. I like the parts about, the parts that just remind you are a product of all those things that came before you and worked through your lives. So we're going to start the hard way with the questions. Number 1, who wants to go with what is the Noah's Ark problem and how does it relate to true diversity?
It pretty much said if you bring 2 of every kind aboard an organization, then you've solved the problem, except you really haven't.
Right. And why haven't you?
Because we're just bringing 2 of every kind of person isn't true diversity.
Difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
Too many managers, leaders.
Mhm.
And our
And just
numbers
having two of each kind doesn't necessarily check the box.
Are numbers the problem? No,
No,
No.
numbers aren't the problem. It's like, really? So we need two of these and two of those and two of these. Now we have diversity. But who gets to decide which two of what?
So after we have the two of each, then what do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now what?
and how are they different?
Right. And just because I look like somebody you think looks like the other one of my two, are we the same?
No.
No, not at all.
Oh, I might look like a lot of people, but believe me, I don't think like a whole lot of people. So, and that's the problem with the Noah's Ark problem. Does it really relate to true diversity? It's not a numbers game. It's not a numbers game. It's a thought process. It's an internal thing more than an external thing. And I think that was a point he tried to make. You can bring two giraffes and you can bring two bears, but bears are polar bears and bears are black bears. And are those, do you bring two bears? Which kind of bears do you bring? And what kind of bear thing happens inside? And so that was a really cool, I thought that was an interesting deal. So thank you guys. What's the definition of meritocracy?
Government or the holding of power by people selected on the basis of their ability.
Yes. Correct. You're promoted or you're selected on the basis of your ability. Number 3, when will the benefits of true meritocracy emerge?
I've got when all are taught and understand that their inherent behaviors and unconscious approaches are likely hindering success for everyone.
Well, when we become aware, when you're conscious that part of meritocracy is the subtle ways that people are disadvantaged.
Mhm.
How many of you have merit raises at your work?
Yeah.
You think that every department scores the same?
No.
I was informed by my HR that my scores are a lot lower than other director scores. Not that my staff is worse, believe me, they're not, they're better. It's just that my expectations are higher. So is that fair?
No.
Plain Jane, everyday meritocracy is not always fair because my staff, I learned, was disadvantaged just by the fact that my grading, to me, a 3 is expected. I expect you to wear clothes and come to work every day. You don't get a whole lot of extra points for being in dress code and being on time. So I would give them 3s. And he's like, why are you only giving them 3s? Because it's as expected. They have clothes on and they're here. 3. So what do you think some of the problems with meritocracy are, other than the ones I just?
There's an unlevel playing field.
There's an unlevel playing field.
Mhm.
Do you think that the person who sits next to the administrator gets noticed more?
Yes.
And part of the problem that you run into is that a lot of times people don't even realize that they're dealing with an unlevel playing field because they're the ones that's on the higher playing field.
Right.
Mhm.
Good point.
Right. The managers they need to be more aware of those and what they're creating. If they do get close to someone unconsciously, that's the person that will pop up first in their mind for an opportunity. And it's not necessarily done on purpose. It's just that's the nature of people.
Correct. Good point. That's the person that's going to come first in your mind. Yes, Miss Tammy Odom?
I'm sorry, I don't know the rules. I don't know if I'm supposed to raise my
You
hand.
can raise your hand and you can just talk. We don't care. We're easy.
So I thought it was interesting that they were talked about the playing field being even, because I read another book and I thought it kind of all brought together that when you are at the bottom, on the bottom end of a playing or a field, you can see the rises. But a lot of times when you're on the rise, you don't see the bottom. And I noticed that when you're like on a hill, sometimes it's hard to tell the elevation of the things around you. But when you're at the bottom, it's really hard. It's really easy to see that disparity. And I thought that kind of brought that point home in this book as well.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And
I think it has it in this book when it's discussing the elephant and the
Mhm.
mouse and the nature of that. How, the mouse has to pretty much be looking around everywhere and be aware of everything, and I get stepped on. But the elephant is really unaware and doesn't really need to worry about that because he's there. He's bigger.
Powerful.
And I think that goes back to her point that it's their nature. It's not necessarily right, but it's just their natural instincts. So we have to learn to overcome those natural instincts.
all right. Number 4, what's the main action people need to realize to create a diverse environment?
Change.
Change.
Changes in our perceptions and beliefs
Mhm.
of our within. So to look within ourselves.
A conscientious awareness is what I wrote down.
Yes.
Embrace the differences.
In our unconscious attitudes.
Mm-hmm.
You read these kind of books and they stick with you. I was flying home from Amarillo the other day, and for some weird coincidence, the only people that got randomly chosen by TSA were young Black people. And I thought, wow, I'm an old white woman. I never get randomly chosen by TSA to be searched. So then my brain's going, oh my God, that's implicit bias. That poor guy doesn't even know he's doing that. And it was like, I need to start trouble, but with TSA, you don't do that. So it was like, I need to go tell him, would you search me, please? But I thought, no, he might not take that right. So I was just
Yeah, no fly list.
Yeah.
yeah, I'd have been in
That's been single too long. She's trying to get searched by
There
TSA.
you go. TSA, great. But but it hits you. You remember, having studied these materials, which helps me at least, and I'm sure it helps y'all with remembering and realizing the implicit biases that people don't even know they're doing.
Mhm.
I guarantee
Right.
those people thought they were being random, but they weren't. I mean, they were just random with some bias. So this is something to think about. If you guys get nothing else out of this, I want you to just take these materials to heart and go, oh, did I just do something that wasn't quite what I meant to do? Or did I just give an impression I didn't mean to give? Or so I think that's what's helped me the most with these is, man, I look at stuff sometimes in a way different light. Like, oh,
Mhm.
that was not good. So what's the definition of diversity?
The
System-
practice of including those from various groups, such as social, racial, ethnic, gender, etc., but not just those.
I got the state of being diverse, variety. And then a little sentence that says there was considerable diversity in the style of the reports. Kind of just fitting into a sentence, but a variety.
Yeah, a range of different things.
Hmm.
That's what I got.
I think that's real important that we say there, it could be anything. I mean, you could have diverse
Yeah.
colors of clothing, or you can have diverse, you like flower different than other.
Mhm.
So, number 6, true diversity requires we tackle subtle and unique characteristics head on. Name some of the distinct types that expand beyond the traditional definitions, such as race, age, gender, religion. Name some others.
Sexual
Marital
orientation.
White,
family structure,
Marital status.
height, weight,
height, weight,
accent,
Hobbies.
Mm.
speaking
Family.
styles,
class,
Smoking habits, food preferences, gradations of skin color, and speaking styles.
That one got me, the language.
Language.
I was really surprised to see that.
Why does it surprise you, Rosabella?
Well, so I speak Spanish, and when I hear somebody else speaking a different language, I don't think differently. It's just normal to me. But it was very surprising to think that the example that they gave here about someone who spoke Japanese and in a meeting was speaking English, and because he had an accent, the manager, or I don't remember if he was a manager, but anyway, it was a colleague who said, oh, he gets smarter as he after a while he's gotten smarter. And I think didn't really realize what he was saying, but I don't relate being smart to knowing English more, because there's so many very intelligent people who speak many different languages, have an accent, and it has nothing to do with their knowledge. They're very smart, but they may have an accent. I don't know. I just thought that was really weird. I never thought of that.
That's great. You picked up a great thing. I mean, I can't speak 2 languages, so they're a whole lot smarter than I am. I would love to be.
think they're smarter.
But I guess one thing that happens is when you are part of the dominant group, you're thinking as the dominant group person, everybody should assimilate to what I'm doing. And when you assimilate to what I'm doing, then you're smart. When you start doing all that other stuff that I'm not doing, then you're not necessarily the smartest person in the room.
So I guess if I'm struggling searching for the English word, they may think that, oh, can't form a sentence properly, she doesn't speak eloquently. Well, I may in my own language, but in English, it might be a little harder sometimes. I don't know. It just maybe that's why, but I never thought of that before. That was interesting.
Cool. Me either, and thank you for sharing that. I have a great language story. My son got married in Japan when he was in the military, and my granddaughter was in preschool and got kicked out of 4 preschools in the city of Pearland because the teachers didn't speak Japanese. Mind you, her father doesn't speak Japanese either. He speaks perfectly good English. They wanted her to speak English, and at 4 years old, she had no idea what the word English meant.
Oh, wow.
So I said, you need to tell her to talk to you like she talks to daddy. And she was fine. So I'd say, Lucy, talk like daddy. I would come English. Lucy, talk like mama. She'd speak Japanese. Then I'd say, talk like Dora, and she'd speak Spanish because she was in ESL class. So
awesome.
I tried to explain to this woman who was in an ESL preschool, you can't tell these kids to speak English at 4 years old. They don't have a clue what the word English means. So that was just an example of her not even thinking out of the box a little bit.
Yeah.
Trying to remove the child from her class because she didn't understand her. It's like, well, you look like a woman, so she's going to talk to you like she talks to mommy. And that's Japanese. You can't understand. So just a story that I thought about language diversity that was just, I didn't understand why she couldn't tell her to speak something else, but we figured it out.
Wow. I'd like to add something to what Rosabelle was saying, because I have a clerk that was raised on the Texas border. Her first language is Spanish. All of her family spoke Spanish. I was so blessed when she applied here because it's beautiful. When you hear her speak Spanish, it's just like, you just want to stop and listen to her. And we had an elderly lady come in, and she was having problems, and when she called me to complain, she complained that my clerk was stupid, and that's exactly what she said. And I said, ma'am, you realize that she's like in the certification program, she is a certified level 1 clerk. And she said, well, she can't even talk right. And I was like, oh, okay. So she didn't like the fact that, and I got the whole, this is America, she should speak English, and she speaks very good English, but she does have an accent. And so it's one of those, the customer is always right. That was the most painful phone call I've ever been through, trying to keep my manners, because it was an insult, because that clerk that I'm speaking of is very intelligent. And the people that come in from Mexico and different, that speak fluent Spanish adore her because they can actually communicate with her. But I think the older generation, and this lady happened to be white, that generation was like, oh, they don't need to be here. So that's interesting that you say it that way.
That was an amazing thing for all of us to hear.
No, thanks for sharing that. It's true. And that's the truth with any country. I believe anyone who speaks wherever you're coming from. You don't necessarily, because you have an accent, it doesn't mean that you're not intelligent because you struggle to find the word in English. You're just learning the English language. That's all. But you can be coming from any country with a doctorate degree. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, because I took a bunch of different languages in school and I don't remember nothing. I took years of it. I couldn't. People start saying stuff, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you lost.
No, I'm from Texas. I can barely speak English.
I took like 3 years.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you.
I really admire anyone who can speak two languages or more, and that truly is a sign of intelligence, because I can barely master my own native language.
I created my own language. I teach Sonia.
Pretty much. Yeah.
No, Sonia, those words were already created.
I had someone who had trouble understanding me because, we use certain phrases like "I'm fixing to," and they were so confused by that. And he's like, "What are you fixing?" And
What are you fixing?
And I said, "Oh no, I'm fixing to go get your copy." "What are you fixing?" And I was like, "I'm going to get your copy." Oh, so it's not just different countries or things like that. It's different areas of,
Right.
The same
the United
country.
States.
Different dialects depending on where in the country you're from. If you have that California accent, New York, Texas, Midwest.
Louisiana.
Y'all didn't tell me we were going to talk about
Especially
California people.
Louisiana. Like, what are you talking
I've
about?
got Texas.
I grew up in Southern California, and when I came here to Texas, that whole fixing thing, I was born in Texas, but left and then came back in my 20s, and it was just very different. It was hilarious to hear my cousins say, "I'm gonna go fix something up. I'm gonna be fixing to go to your house." What is that?
It's the getting your picture made. It took me about 4 years to figure that. I didn't know what that meant. We get our picture taken. So I thought they were like having a portrait done or something. Getting our picture made, it's like, wow. But it's regional. So we answered number 7 while we were talking, which is great because you guys are just brilliant. And we pretty much answered number 8. Are diversities a finite or infinite set of characteristics?
Infinite.
Infinite.
They go on forever. You may hate green shoes. Who knows? So that's an interesting deal. All right, number 9, thoughts on how you would react or process the first litmus test to the example on page 17 regarding the employee who joining the U.S. Army Guard.
That one triggered me a lot because I have experience with both sides of that, being that my ex-husband was a combat veteran and seeing everything that he went through, and also being a single parent myself. We split up about a year after he got out. I think most marriages split up within 2 years once the service member leaves. It's just statistical. But for me, being a single parent, I have like my kids have appointments, or I have to leave to take them to an event or something like that. But him being a combat veteran, he has disabilities and things like that came from his military service, and he's actually going through a lot of stuff right now, where he's having to take off work a lot for different appointments, and they're all service connected. So to me, it's the same thing, whether you're taking off work because you have children issues, or whether you're taking off work because you have doctor issues or appointment. In his case, it's service connected. But to me, I don't know why some people think that it's more bothersome if an employee has children. I don't want to say if a woman is pregnant, because there's that whole thing going on online right now that you can't say women are pregnant. I don't know, so I just say if an employee is pregnant, has children, some people look at that like, oh, what that person's so bothersome. But yet if an employee, say like they're in the reserves or something like that, and they have to take off for a deployment or an extended training, then they're like, oh, okay, we'll figure out what, how to handle your absence or something like that. But if you flip the table around, and it's, in this case, it's an employee that's a parent who's pregnant or has children, then it's like, and to me, like, I see both sides of that, having the husband / ex-husband who's had the difficulties coming out of the military and that affecting his work. And then also me being a parent.
In how many of you have heard of, you know, when a guy goes off and joins the military and leaves his family, it's like, wow, we are so proud of him. But I have to really catch myself when a woman goes off and joins the military and leaves her children.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but I have to remember, you know, I would have felt real good if that was a guy. Why am I feeling not so good because that was a female? So I have to really think myself through that. So
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a hard one.
And Pat, to your point, I don't know if y'all have this problem. Listen to me, y'all. My husband owns his own business. And for those of you that don't know, my husband is not what you would call politically correct. And we have this gentleman that works for us, and he's been with us for a long time, and he needed to take off to take his kids to the doctor. You know what my husband said? Can't your wife do it?
Yep.
So you can imagine that he and I had conversations about that's not acceptable, and I can't believe you. I mean, this is an employee that is always there. His wife happened to be out of town, but I told my husband, I said, you cannot ask that. But he's an old school thinker, and he thought that there was absolutely nothing wrong with that, and couldn't believe that I got on him because he said that. He thought I was being ridiculous, and I'm like, I can't even
no, we
believe
got him, don't worry.
it surprised me.
That's a really good point. See, the things that we pull that we don't even realize we're pulling. So kind of walks us right into number 10. Why is confirmation bias also known as implicit theory?
Because people develop a theory about someone but are unaware that they have done so. And the quote, the book, the trouble is that once people develop an implicit theory, the confirmation bias kicks in and they stop seeing evidence that doesn't fit it.
That's a see, I told you so. One person, you develop a prejudice about theory, and then one person fits it and said, see, I told you. That's how they all act. So, yeah, that's dangerous. That's really dangerous. So, number 11, diversity itself is only the first step in the journey. What must happen within the organization to garner the true benefits of hiring for differences?
I wrote, stop making unconscious assumptions.
And I said that we should acknowledge and embrace the differences, actively embrace the differences.
I have, we must act to overcome the subtle advantages or disadvantages that diversity can create. The toughest piece of this is that we must stop making unconscious assumptions. That's not impossible, but it's difficult, and it will take time, practice, and a core realization that diversity itself is only the first step on the journey.
Yeah, we have to try to be fair. We have to try to value the different ideas that people can bring in. And that's real difficult because some of us are very stubborn and we think we're right. So it's very difficult when in organizations that have been established forever to open that door and say, you know, let's see what this person has to say.
Distract. We need to change the structure.
Structure, yes. Our structures aren't based on diversity. I mean, they're old structures. They're very well implanted structures. Like I said, people that know how to play the game win the game. And sometimes culture will have taught you not to play the game. That's not how things are done. And people suffer for that. We're game players here. The longer you've been a good old red-blooded American, the better you play the game. So we have all these new people coming in, which is beautiful in the last couple, decades, and don't understand the rules of our games. Are we going to tell them the rules of our game so they can be on fair footing? Not most of the time. Invite someone that's in your space from a different culture and ask them if they know the rules to your game. Again, I only use my daughter-in-law. We're sitting at Thanksgiving her first time here, and she's like, when does the festivity begin? We had already eaten, we were watching football, and she's like, when's the holiday? And it's like, this is the holiday. She was waiting for a festivity. And it was like, oh, we ate and we watched football. She could not understand how Americans thought that was like an amazing day. I don't know what she was waiting for, but that was not it.
For Thanksgiving.
Yeah, she hates Thanksgiving to this day.
Did she have the gravy? Did she not know?
Yeah, in America, you have a whole holiday to eat all day. Yes, correct.
It's my favorite holiday.
Oh, she hates it still. She's been here for 18 years. She still hates it.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
we need to put a piñata in it and make
Yeah,
it
there you go.
happier.
She
That's
would
what I
do
would
it
do.
in a festivity. Yeah, only
We do
have
that
a
at Christmas.
whole holiday to eat. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
Anybody else eats all day and calls it a holiday? Call that Monday through Saturday.
There is an amazing parade.
Take her down to Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Just take her with you down to Mardi Gras.
I do need to take her to Mardi. She probably would enjoy Mardi Gras. I'll leave my son home and go.
Tell her that's the festival she's been waiting for.
Be an interesting study in diversity. See how she felt about Mardi Gras. All right. Diversity itself. Okay. What are the 7 objectives to diversity, and why is it a difficult task for many to embrace diversity? Why don't people want diversity? What are they going to tell you is wrong with diversity?
It's not them. It's different.
Adapting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Have you heard the term reverse discrimination? It's all just reverse discrimination.
Mhm.
Right.
Reverse discrimination.
Giving them benefits just cause.
Why do I have to do something different?
They
Talking
don't
about-
see diversity as a tool for success. They want evidence, lack of evidence. They want evidence that diversity works. Otherwise, they're not going to do it.
And how many times have you heard this? Oh, so we got to like act special for them?
Mhm.
Modeling them? We're going to baby them? So I'm supposed to walk around on eggshells and not say stupid stuff for them? The whole them word. How many times have you heard? Every time I hear that word now, I'm like, uh-oh, that's a diversity issue.
Well, and I think for a lot of people, they don't understand it's a culture and not just the law. That it's I don't know if I explained that, but some people you get, well, it's the law. We have to do that. We have to do that, but they don't really
Yeah.
embrace the change.
Mhm.
Oh, why are we messing with stuff? Stuff's fine. Why are we rocking the
Yeah.
boat? What's wrong with what we got?
Mhm.
Pat, you have a good example of that.
Which one? I got so many
Well,
stories.
because I was just sitting here thinking about the fact I had a conversation with one of the directors last week, and she's hiring for a position, and she said, you know, it's really hard for me. She's in her 60s. She said, it's very hard for me because I'm getting all these young people and they don't have the experience that I'm looking for. And I went, well, wait a second. I said, the young people saved our organization with Zoom and all of that because they had to teach us old people how to do it. And I remember you and I, Pat, having conversations about, no, we're not doing virtual training. This is stupid. This is not going to last that long. We'll be fine. And a year and a half later, we know what we're doing.
Still hate it, but I'm doing it.
So we laughed about that with the director, because I was like, well, right now would be a really good time for me to have a younger person in court, because we're all stuck in our ways. And, you know, we went paper light 2 years ago and we thought the world was coming to an end because we started shredding things.
I hired a millennial on purpose last time, and the rest of my staff was going berserk, going, what are you doing? And it's like, I'm trying to stretch my supervision skills. I rock the boat big, and there are times I think I capsized it, but we're still good. Bring stuff to the table that none of the rest of us ever would have thought about. And she's very open in telling us when we step out of line. As somebody who's been doing this a long time, and a staff member says to you, hey, you just hurt my feelings, you go, so what? But then you got to kick back and go, oh my God, did I say, was I being inappropriate? Did I do? And I'll tell her, thank you. Come tell me what I said or did, which is a stretch. Because as an old school supervisor, you want to say, excuse me.
Get over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I have another
Yeah.
assistant who's like, you let her say that to you? Yes, I really did. Because, you know, I might have learned something from that. So
Absolutely.
it's hard to be diverse.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is the whole, don't blame me, I didn't create this environment. They just want everything to be different, but this is the way it is. They came here. They knew walking in here what it was like. Like, really? Did they? No. Nobody thought it
But
was
is
gonna.
that coddling the diverse individuals?
There you go. We don't.
Yeah.
We're just we're gonna baby them. We're gonna make sure we don't step out of line and say the wrong thing.
I don't know. It's in the book.
It is in the book, and that's
It
what
is.
that means. That whole fear of walking around on eggshells with somebody because you're afraid to say anything. You know, when they put that whole "don't say this, don't say that, don't say this, don't say that," you go, "What can I say?" And I'm not going to get myself in trouble. But I think if we opened it up and we're more communicative to
Exactly.
like, if I say something stupid, tell me what and why, because I probably have no idea how I hurt your feelings. And if you don't tell me, and you just walk around pouting about it, I have no clue what's wrong.
It's what you don't know.
Like I'm like world champ at hurting people's feelings. But I don't mean it, never mean to. Sometimes I just don't know what I did or said that because
Yeah.
I'm pretty plain spoken.
Mhm.
Sometimes I tend to hurt people's feelings and I don't even realize because it wouldn't have hurt my feelings if somebody had said it to me. So I think that's further down our list here.
Yeah, and I think the old school people don't expect staff to talk out like that.
Yeah.
But
'Cause you're like,
I'm pretty old school. I'm pretty old, but not old school. I kind of find it refreshing for somebody to question me. It's like, you did what? You said what? It bothers the other staff more than it bothers me. But I get it. All right. Number 13, we already talked a little bit about the mouse and the elephant. Identify the true groups within an organization that this theory describes.
dominant and non-dominant groups.
Big O elephant.
Powerful.
Tall, mighty. The elephant and the mouse is small and could be easily crushed by the elephant. And then, as Rosabelle mentioned, the elephant knows nothing about the mouse, but the mouse somehow has to survive. So he's all knowing and is paying attention to everything.
Has to know everything that's happening.
Yeah, because he has to.
Right.
'Cause he's so
Right.
small.
Right. It's
Trying
a
to
life and
survive.
death.
Yeah,
It's a
he's
life and death
inferior,
scenario
so
for
he
him.
has to
Right.
pay attention to everything, where the elephant is just like carefree because he can't be like hunted when it comes to the mouse, if you will. He's superior.
But you know, I was wondering, I was trying to remember, as I was growing up, didn't we talk about the fact that elephants are scared of mice?
They are. I remember learning that when I was a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah. I was like
They pick
thinking,
up their husks.
You know, that's probably true. Even in the dichotomy, the higher ups, maybe.
I gotta look this up.
You're gonna have to Google it on the Googleation machine.
Yeah,
Maybe they mean because the elephant.
Why
can't
did I
swim.
type "are elephants" and
That's
then
another
it
Texas.
popped up, afraid of mice?
Look,
I really
because
haven't
that's
heard those. Can I
because
get
all
that?
of us old school people Googled it already to try and figure it out.
Elephants are afraid of mice because they
No,
fear
we
mice.
asked someone else to Google it,
They're like ants. They can sting you.
That's
These
what it
mice can.
says. It says
right?
they're afraid of them because they might crawl up their trunks and cause irritation and blockage, making it hard for them to breathe.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
That's
Come
what
on
it
now.
says.
She just
Is that what
Googled
it
stuff
says,
from
really?
Google.
Yeah.
They will strangle them. They will
Wow.
strangle an elephant.
Call it their nose.
So,
Maybe
you know, I guess like in the jungle or wherever, there's like field mice. So there's a lot of. Wow.
Maybe with this theory,
I was
it's
like, I
because
learned
the elephant
something.
can't see the mouse.
Right. You can't.
There's
do
a
it.
flaw
Say
in
that
the
again,
book.
Erica.
There's a flaw.
That's funny.
There's a flaw in every
There's a
book.
flaw in the book.
I liked this book too. Don't get me wrong, but I think there are some things in the book that maybe I didn't quite agree with, but maybe that's one of them. That's my takeaway.
That means you read it and you read it thinking about it.
I did.
Mhm.
I did.
That's what that means. We kind of answered 14 and 15. Mice traits are similar to those considered woman's intuition. Not female per se, but a lot of the characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then the mouse, how do the strengths of the elephant and the mouse work together to create the best leaders for diverse groups?
Combine elements of both.
Working together.
Hmm.
They're the smart power together.
Need the elephant's confidence along with the mouse's ability to read people.
Hmm.
The elephant will just charge forward, and the mouse is more able to read people going behind him, going, "Oh, don't charge forward that way. Maybe charge forward this."
Mm-hmm.
I think the mouse with what I was thinking, multitasking, the ability to multitask would help the elephant a lot in getting several things done at a time.
Yeah.
It's hard to turn that big old head around. I think that mice can teach elephants to be a little more flexible. They're the people in our lives who go, "Well, what about this? What about this? Do you think about this?"
Yeah.
Those are our mice. All right, now we're going to get into grandma. Somebody describe the theory of grandma.
Different ways to learn about ourselves and others. That's what I have.
Inheriting unconscious beliefs from the world, from our experiences.
She always passes along wisdom and has a lesson or two to share.
She is always whispering in our ear what we perceive as right or wrong, good or bad, acceptable and unacceptable.
I want to meet y'all's grandmas.
We all have stories of things our grandmothers. I was telling them yesterday at work that my grandmother, she was Polish, and I can't say it in Polish anymore. I used to be able to, but they were arguing with the defendant, or he was arguing. I said, "Don't argue with him. It's like arguing with a head of cabbage." She would tell you that all the time in Polish, but that's what it translated it to. You can't argue with a head of cabbage. So my grandmother comes in my head and I'm like, "Don't even try to argue with that man. You can't get anywhere." But we all have those sayings that our grandmother used to say, or some older person in our life who was influential. And we carry that forever. That was messy.
My mom or my grandma had a similar saying, but it was in Spanish. But in English, it translated to better to have one crazy than two. So don't fight with them.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think another one which the book talks about when it comes to like asserting yourself, but another one is children ought to be seen and not heard.
Oh yeah.
And so that kind of stuck with me, like, like, be quiet, nobody wants to hear about you, we don't want to hear, bragging's not good, stuff like that. So that'll come on later in the questions. But and also girls are nice sort of thing, like be a nice girl, that too.
Yeah.
I didn't get that part.
In the big messages, we all have those messages, and who we are is formed by the messages that we were raised with.
Yeah.
Some of us are a bunch older than others, and we were raised in a very different world. So it's taken some adjustment for some of us to embrace diversity.
Well, and now some of us are grandmas, and I try to be really, I thought, man, what kind of
grandma am I gonna
what
be?
kind of grandma am I being? Would I say grandma things? What am I saying the right things? And
sending them out there in the world.
Yeah.
I think every generation gets better at diversity, hopefully. I hate to see.
Oh, yes.
Like we're going backwards a little bit, but we are so much further than my father's generation in diversity and acceptance. Just so much further. It's just in my lifetime how far we've come. So I have.
Well, and we're a little older, and I say we. I'm talking to the two top squares. But both of my grandmothers are gone, but they grew up in a world before integration, and the world was very different for them, and they were both good women with very good characters, but their views of life were very skewed by just because of what was acceptable when they were young, and even when they were alive, and passing those things down to us and my sibling and my cousins. So it's changed considerably.
Thank gosh.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
I just can't even imagine.
But also they weren't willing, they were not open
They weren't.
to different thoughts. I experienced that with my grandparents and even with my parents to some extent, because obviously they were raised by these people. But we would, anytime you would suggest something, it was like, no. And it's like, why? And it was like, no. I mean, there was never an explanation. And so you start trying to get them to talk, and then it's like they would tell my sister and I, y'all just don't understand the way the world is. And we're looking at them like, no, I don't think we're not the ones that aren't understanding. But it is hard on them. I mean, it was difficult because they were very closed-minded.
Yeah.
Yes.
In East Coast, it wasn't so much race. My father didn't like anybody but Polish people and Germans because they were fighting for the same jobs when they immigrated. Because at first I couldn't understand, talk about diversity being different than just race. It's like, why do you hate Italian people? Because they were fighting with the same job. So it just became a matter of survival, I guess. But I am so glad to see things change. I can't even fathom some of the things we were taught and thought when we were younger.
No doubt. No doubt.
Wow. So will the building blocks of a diverse workforce actually change culture?
No.
No. We talked about this earlier. Just putting two of everything ain't changing your culture. It requires conscious effort. We just gotta, we have to understand why it's to our advantage, that whole whiffum thing you hear all the time. What's in it for me? We have to realize that it's very much in our favor to make everything work well together. Be a lot less killing.
So what do we do when we have someone that is not understanding, that there is a whiffum in there for them? No, it's been this way for forever, and I think that's the way it should stay, and I don't see a reason for us to change. I mean, at what point or how do we just keep plugging away and keep kind of chipping away at it? And I mean, I don't know.
What you guys got? I always have something to say about what you guys got.
I think you need to use Erica's grandma's analogy.
Yeah. You crazies.
They're just people you're not going to ever change.
And the whiffing for that person might be you get to keep your job.
Yep.
If you treat people with respect. That
I
might
think
be something that matters to them.
the person who mentioned about the Zoom court, I forgot who that was, but it's like, I just want to hire a bunch of people who are just like me. We're like, well, you need to hire a younger person because they can teach you how to use Zoom.
Absolutely.
You need to hire a different person because they can bring this to the organization or bring that to the organization. I think like that's a what's in it for me thing, I guess.
And I agree with Pat. For some people, and unfortunately, because you want to keep your job might be the only whiffle. Some people are just so set in their belief system or flawed belief system that they're not willing to accept anything else.
You just work around them and watch the whiffums that other people gain by embracing change and differences. And just, if they can't see those, I feel bad for them. But you can't force it on some people. Most people will come around. There are
and ultimately others will see that that person is not succeeding because they won't I don't want to say conform, that's not the word I want to
embrace.
Embrace or
and sometimes they'll see it and sometimes they won't, and sometimes they just leave.
I don't think they don't see it. I think they choose not to They choose not to see it. They see it, but they
Yes.
don't want to see it.
They see it, but they don't see it.
Yeah, they don't want to see it.
I hear you, but I'm
They
not
turn a
listening to what
blind eye
you're
to
saying.
it. Yeah.
And is it a threat? Do they feel threatened by it? And maybe that's how you find them with them, to let them know that you're not threatened. I mean, help them understand it's not a threat to you. You bring something also.
Yep.
That
But I
we,
find that too in a lot of jobs. I'll talk to people, like I'll talk to millennials and I'll hear them like, man, it's hard. It's hard to get a job with the county. It's hard to get a job with the city. Like I've applied and no one ever calls me. And then I'll talk to them and I'll think, and I'm like, well, you have this degree, you have that degree. And then I start to think and I'm like, oh, it makes sense. Because then you have a lot of cities and you have a lot of counties where you have people who've been there 20, 30 years, and a lot of people don't have degrees. And then they'll see an application come through and it's like, okay. And then we start to have these conversations and it's like, they don't want the diversity of education because they start to think like, oh no, they're going to come in and take my job. Or they're going to come in and bring in more people who eventually might take my job before I reach retirement or before I'm ready to leave or something like that. So I think a lot of times that diversity they don't want because that diversity might knock you off of your seat, and people don't want that kind of diversity. So a lot of times it's not so much that, oh, these millennials are coming in. It's like, oh no, these millennials are coming with these degrees and the education, and I don't have that. And it's a lot of people who work in these city jobs and these county jobs that have been there so long and they don't have that. And I really, a lot of times I talk to millennials and I feel like that's the conversations we have. And it's like, it doesn't make sense. You have people who have, even the experience, they might've done 5 internships and they can't land a job and it just doesn't make sense. It's like, well, what's happening? What am I doing wrong? They can't even get an interview, not a phone call back. It just doesn't make sense. It's like, well, what am I doing wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. It don't make sense.
Yeah. And at the same time, like some people that are educated, like have college education, if you don't, like I don't, but people that are all college educated, I've had people say like, oh wow, like you're really smarter, like, oh, you like surprised that I know something. And I'm like, I'm not dumb just because I don't have a degree. I'm like, so it's all in, I guess, perception, because I've had comments made where I really had to hold my tongue, and I'm like, so now in life, like I've developed you don't think I can, I'm gonna prove you wrong type attitude. So
I had a lady tell me, I was at a court one time and she came in for her juvenile daughter. The daughter's like in college, she was in college at the time. Her daughter was a juvenile, got in a fight, and she was coming trying to take care of the ticket for her daughter and she couldn't. And she was like, my daughter got in a fight and those girls jumped her. And I'm like reading the report and her daughter started the fight against like a whole group of girls. But I didn't say that. I'm reading, looking at it. And she wanted to talk to the judge and she tells me like her daughter's this scholar at Baylor. And she's like, my daughter's this scholar. And she's like literally telling me as if I'm like a cashier at the local Dollar Tree. Like, I don't know what she thought, or if I didn't have any education, or this job pays $7 an hour. Like, I really just didn't know what she thought at the time. I just didn't say anything. I just was looking at her like, okay, I really don't. She looked at me as if I was like doing community service on the side of the road. Like, I really just don't know the way she was talking to me, but I just like, okay. And she wanted to talk to the judge. So at the time, the judge I was working for, like he was one of those people, like, you come tell him, I'm like, this lady's at the window. She's extremely angry. Like, I knew he was going to tell her the same thing I did, but I went and told him and she left. And when I went to lunch and came back, she finally talked to him. And I just kind of smiled at her as I was leaving because he told her the same thing. He couldn't help her. But it was one of those things. She was like just talking to me as if I had like no education. Like, I made $7 an hour. Like, I didn't have no experience in the court. Like, I was some volunteer. So like, I really just don't know what she thought. But I don't know. Like, I just was looking at her. Like, she just looking like it's my first job ever. Like, I really just don't know. And I had been there literally like 5 years. Like, this wasn't my first rodeo, ma'am. I'm like, I got a retirement plan. I've been putting money into it. Like, in my head, I'm like, I got experience, ma'am. Like, I'm a supervisor. Like, I train people. Like, in my head, like, I'm going through the motions. Like, don't go off on this lady. Like, I'm great. Like, I'm wonderful. Like, I'm going to my head. Like, everything she said, I was just like saying something better to myself. But people, people would say stuff to like put you off your rocker. But I'm like, people are crazy.
Plow her way through you in a very elephant manner because you was just a mouse she could step on.
Oh yeah, no, she was a roach.
She was
Okay,
gonna run up her trunk. And
she was a roach. She wasn't no mouse. She was a roach.
We deal with those kind of people on a daily basis, but then again,
Lots of roaches over here.
A flying roach.
sometimes you got to kick back and try to figure out where they're coming from. What made
And the
you?
judge was a can of raid.
There you go. What made them like that? You know, why did they act like that? What are their grandma's messages?
Right.
Good time.
18, list 5 major ways unconscious thinking and perceived ideas originate. Where do these things come from?
Experiences.
Mhm.
Parents,
Ears,
Childhood.
Years,
religion,
religion, childhood,
Media,
culture,
movies.
and myths, fairy tales, fables.
Fairy tales.
Media.
There ain't a Disney princess alive don't have an awful stepmother.
Yep.
And I raised children that I did not birth, and I kind of found that offensive.
Or Mrs. Hannigan.
Wait a minute.
None of them are ugly either.
No.
Why can't they be? I want a fat, ugly Disney princess.
They have
And I
one
want her
of the
name to be
others in the worst
Tammy.
category. Of course, the fat, ugly one.
There was a fat, ugly stepsister.
It's
She was trying to
fluffy,
keep
not
it
fat.
Yeah.
It's fluffy.
Fluffy.
And they're all orphans, you know, so it's like myths and fairy tales create these things. Except for Aladdin, he could be a low-life thief and end up a prince. You're lucky. Just stuff to think about. We get so much, and now I think even the culture and the media is so much worse. Of course,
Yeah.
it's everywhere. It's in your face every minute.
all the time.
That's how we end up with a tax on our nation's capital. Like, we got too much media.
Yep. Way too much.
But yeah, you know, your parents, your peers, your religion,
Mhm.
culture, the things you were raised to believe. What are
Pat,
some-
one of the things that, if I may, I think COVID has changed, it's changed so much in our lives. And you go back and you think, most of us that for our cities, we think about the heroes as the firefighters and the police officers, who gets on the front page of the newspaper for getting a kitten out of a tree, all of those things. But one thing that I think none of us ever really think about, I try to, because I'm close to some of them, but we have a huge maintenance staff here at the city of Seguin. And each one of them, there's a group of them like assigned to every building. So when the city shut down and they sent all of us essential workers home to work from home with our computers, we were the essential workers that got told to go home. The true essential workers were those folks in maintenance and in housekeeping that came in and cleaned these buildings. I mean, it's amazing what they were able to do, sanitized everything. When we came back to work, they were here, their crew was here. I had a crew assigned to my court. So windows that you look up, they were cleaning nonstop. So you never think much about the kind of people that keep the world running until you have something like that. And our city manager, we have a new city manager and he's amazing. And the first thing he did is basically give them all like employee of the month and make a huge deal about what those, but the true heroes that they were. And in the past, everybody, we appreciate them because my trash can's always empty. And we speak to them because they pass in the hall. I really don't think we truly appreciated them until we realized that they were truly heroes. I mean, they allowed us to come to work and not have to clean and we could do our jobs. But just because somebody has a different, you're on a different scale at work or a different, I guess, pay scale at work doesn't mean that they're any less important. I think that's kind of true in life too. We don't think about those folks, the support people always. We always look at the ones who make the most money or they have the highest title or, like the president of the United States. We don't really think about the guy that's out there making the White House yard and gardens look absolutely gorgeous because that's just what it is. So diversity in the workplace, it just kind of seemed with COVID, it flipped around and made us really appreciate people that we should have been appreciating more.
Truck drivers.
Oh yeah.
Like during COVID.
Mm-hmm. Grocery store workers.
Yeah. All right. Me and my Amazon guy are good buds now. What about the
I love me
Amazon
some Amazon.
store? What are some ways a manager is responsible for achieving the true benefits of diversity? How is it a manager's responsibility?
Notice an employee's strengths.
Because they're the leaders of the team.
Each manager is responsible for establishing the environment that allows for true cognitive diversity, the genuinely different ideas and ways in which people think. Managers need to be aware of what is going on in the conference call situation. The manager needs to single out individual attendees or at least a representative group to hear diversity of opinions.
And sometimes the manager is the person that decides whether the playing field is level or unlevel and how they handle that.
Agreed. One of the things that it says in the book is that you're the manager is the communication traffic cop. You have to give people invitation to speak. Sometimes you have to put them on a spot in a gentle way. You know, not just call them out, but make sure that they have the opportunity to give their ideas. And one of the things it says that you do is maybe provide notice. Like when I sent you guys your emails for this class, and I tell you 100 times, you're going to speak. I mean, I noticed was pretty clear that's what was going to be expected. And so it gave you the opportunity to know what you were getting into, so you're less fearful of communicating. I think that's important.
Yeah, so when they do that and say, hey, let's hear from so and so, they're allowing others who normally would just stay quiet, or too shy, or just don't want to say anything. Give them that opportunity to be able to say something and to continue doing that, not just at one meeting, but at every meeting or at any time that there's a function going on, to allow them to be able to share, because there's that person that's pretty dominant taking over the conversation, and it could be those that are in a higher position, or just that's their nature. They like to talk, and so
Exactly.
some people don't, and they're shyer. So
The elephant needs to incorporate the mouse characteristics and be interested in communicating instead of just, I'm going to bulldoze through.
but you miss out on a lot of stuff, a lot of opportunity from those that are quieter. And going back to the grandma theory, that you have someone who is from a different country who was taught differently, and interrupting someone is rude, but you're in America and that's expected. You want to be able to be heard, then you speak up. So the manager's responsibility, or if he really wants diversity, then you got to be aware of who's in the room and pull them out. Like you said, Pat, gently, not now you speak. But there's ways of doing it. There's ways of before a meeting, sending out a questionnaire, or here's the points that we're gonna hit, and here's our agenda for the meeting, and just be ready in case we call on you, or something like that, to prompt people to say, oh, okay, I better think of something in case they do call on me.
How many of
One thing
you?
that,
Be aware
one
that
thing
you,
that I thought of, one
I'm
thing
sorry,
that I
be
thought
aware
about
that
was
you
kind
may
of
have
doing,
some, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kenneth.
one thing that I thought about was like doing a round robin. That way you give every person in the meeting an opportunity, and they know that they'll have an opportunity to talk about something. And so it's not all of a sudden I'm putting you on the spot. I know in our meeting that there always is a round robin. And so, I know at least at one point during the meeting, I'm going to be called on to talk about something. And I know about that beforehand. I can prepare for that or whatever.
Erica?
I was just going to mention that managers need to be aware that they may have some in their team that do believe, as the book is called, that the loudest duck gets shot. So they may not speak up.
And I to bounce off what Kenneth said, I have a couple of clerks that are very very intelligent, but they're very introverted and often don't speak up. So if there's something that I want to bring up at a staff meeting and it's within their purview, things that they do on a daily basis, I will ask them to prepare something. If it's something I want to bring up at a staff meeting, I actually ask them to prepare a short little blurb about what the new change or whatever, so that it to me, number one, everything isn't coming from me. It's not a lecture, it's more participatory, and it gives them opportunity to contribute, because they truly are very intelligent people. They're just sometimes don't have that, don't get the opportunity to share their good ideas. So.
And on the reverse, we talked about how managers are responsible. How's an employee responsible for helping to achieve the true benefits of diversity? Number 20.
Get
They
out
gotta
of their
get out of
comfort zone.
Speak up.
Age.
Yeah.
You can't expect the manager to do it on his own or her own. You can't expect them to do it all. You know, how do they know? You got to get out of your comfort zone. It's tough, but you sometimes just got to get out of your comfort zone. There are a few people on here who have been very quiet today, and if they're on the next one, be prepared, because I'm watching and I know who might need a little nudge. Get out of your comfort zone. Sometimes, we talked about this when we were talking about prep facilitators the other day, and some people who are certified to teach prep sessions, but they've never had the guts to actually do it. So we're going to help them nudge a little bit. And then
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
I've gotten facilitator trained to be a facilitator within our city. They've trained quite a few people because they want to do that, and I do one every week with there's 2 people that got trained in our court, and we kind of 1 week he's on, 1 week I'm on, and so forth. And you have to prepare. And I'm the person that stays quiet in a meeting. And that I've noticed that because I've forced myself to get out of my comfort zone and get trained, and get more pointers, tips, and all of the training that I got helped me to be a little bit more outspoken but mostly prepared. Just prepare more, and to know how to encourage people to speak. The way someone facilitating a meeting words a question or encourages someone will help them to come up with an answer. I mean, it's really interesting, but it is up to both manager and the employee to do their homework.
I agree. And you took real good advantage of the tools that they offered you to do that. And that's important. I think it's up to an employee that if those opportunities are offered to you, that you try to take advantage of those, or they'll quit offering. So take it up. What are your thoughts about the litmus test on page 78 regarding the Japanese woman who tells the manager of her ambitions?
Ooh, that one.
I think he's intimidated by her.
Karen, did you have something?
I said he just wasn't treating them equal.
Yeah, he was not. It was kind of a shock to him that she spoke up. Like, wait a minute, what's the Asian woman doing saying something?
Right.
I interpreted it as shy people surprised a shy person has ambitions, or a quiet person has ambitions.
She had quite a few whammies there. She had quite a few of what he considered to be traits that wouldn't have allowed her to do that. It wasn't just one thing. She had a bunch of them. Pretty impressive.
I did not like his reaction.
No.
I would not have, yeah.
She had to do it. It was necessary for her to do it. And that was tough. Talk about stretch. Number 22, what is the like to not like phenomenon?
The reluctance to give feedback to someone who does not look like you and whose reaction to criticism you cannot predict.
I mean, I didn't like that theory, but that one hit me. It's like, it's easier to give feedback to somebody what you know what the reaction's gonna be. But unfortunately, that's the staff person who gets the most criticism because I know they're not gonna blow up at me. Whereas if I have a staff person who I know if I coach them is gonna throw a blue living fit and be ugly for 3 days, I'm less likely to coach that person. Now that's on me. But it's that I like to know.
As
Dottie?
most of you know me, I'm a quiet person.
Mhm.
I don't do much talking, but I did have one employee that I criticized, and every time I criticized her, she cried. And I thought, that's me making somebody cry, seriously?
It must have been bad.
Okay, I don't know how else to fix this, but other than just to tell her what she's doing wrong and try to help her fix it, but it didn't work.
It couldn't have been, it could have been that, you know, I think it's in the book that it discusses how women hear things, you know, with criticism.
Interpretation.
It could have been something small, Dorothy, that you told them, but they took it to the next level.
And
Yeah.
she
And
did
I've
every
done that
time.
before.
Yeah.
We're like, and the manager's thinking, you're what? It's been blown out of proportion. It's something small, but because of the way women are, I guess, it's just a different way of thinking. Women think differently than men. Men see things a lot more positive than women do. It based on this book, and so that's got to be tough for managers to be able to, the way that you talk to someone and tell them or try to give them, like, let's say their evaluation. How do you do that? And you know, it could be that it's very different the way that you explain an evaluation to a man than a woman. That's something that this book would help me to be careful with, to be aware and conscious of how the way I speak with a man and a woman.
And I discovered how unfair it is for the people who are like me, who I can predict their reaction, get a whole lot more correction than the people I don't have all day to listen to and blow up and pout the rest of the day. And that isn't fair because they need the correction more, if not.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I don't want to deal with their reaction.
Yeah.
That's on me. And
Right.
this book, I thought, oh God, I've got to fix that because that's not fair.
Yeah.
I would think nothing of asking Tammy, what the heck did you do that for? And she would tell me and laugh. But there's other people on his screen. I'd be like, I don't even want to know because they're going to go into it and then they're going to get upset because I asked and I just don't want to play. So we have to really be aware of how that treats people differently, maybe in a negative way. That's fair to the people that are like you. That's not fair.
And then again, it makes, as we said earlier, it makes the playing field unlevel.
Well, Pat, one of the things that I mean, and we obviously know each other personally, so we know each other's personalities. But I think one of the things that I have to really be cognizant of is the fact that when I am sitting in a room full of directors, 9 times out of 10, I'm the only female in that room. And the way I communicate with them is totally different than the way I need to communicate with my clerical staff, which are for the most part female. And sometimes I forget to switch my hat and I can come across as being very matter of fact with staff, where it just having to switch your communication style sometimes is not easy, and how and have a positive experience on both of those levels, I guess.
Those are great. It is. Especially on the fly. Sometimes you have to change those styles like in a step. And
yes. And you know, I can't go in, and if I want to talk to the male police chief, I can't talk to him the same way that I talk to my brand new little baby cashier who's only been here, you know, a few weeks. And like you said, that's on you, but sometimes that's tough as a manager to be able to switch back and forth.
But then, Tammy, I guess the question that I kind of think about is, how do we get to the point where all of the directors are male and all of the clerical staff is female? How do we get there? You know, and not only how do we get there, but how do we change that so that there's as many males and females in the director's room as there are at the clerical staff at the window? I mean,
well, I'm going to say that, I'm going to say 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been in that room to begin with.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, some of that I think will change over time with the way a lot of stuff is going these days. I think, and part of it is just, it's going to take time because you have people who are in positions that don't deserve necessarily to not be in their position. But now, you know, we are having more females who are leaders and who are in boardrooms. And I think it's something that over the next couple generations, we will get the diversity that we've been looking for.
And I notice it more because of COVID. We've had to, so in our commission meetings, we have assigned seats per se. And I've noticed it during COVID more where we have to socially distance. So instead of 12 of us on the front row, they've spread us out throughout. And now it's even more obvious when we sit in that different seating pattern. It's white male, white female, a gentleman of color, then you come back a gentleman of color, and then it's a white male, white male, white male, white male. Oh, here's another female. So it just stands out so much more. And I had to think about who sits where, I'm sorry, but it just stands out so much more, Kenneth, when you get the visual picture of what that looks like. So it's changing, but it's sure changing slow.
And this is how we change it. This right here, what we're doing today is how we change it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have a comment for Kenneth. When you figure out how to get more men applying for clerks positions, please let me know your secret.
I have one.
I could use some testosterone in this.
We just hired a deputy clerk and I had more male applicants than I had female.
Good.
We had about 10 people apply in a 3-week period, and I only had 3 females. The rest were all males.
That's amazing.
I was actually quite surprised. I'm not gonna lie. You know, just kind of looking at that, I kept going, "Wow!" I mean, like it baffled me because yes, this has been primarily a female-dominated job. But when I was looking at it, and I was looking at some of their, some people just did the application, some people did resumes, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, it shocked me that I had more men than I did women.
Tina, do you think it's because the clerks are not necessarily considered cashiers in a lot of these cities? It's more of a profession. I think maybe
You know, I think so, but I definitely think it has. I know where you're going on that, and I think that might be part of it too. But one of the things I'm still struggling with is we're not just cashiers.
Thank you.
You know, that's one thing. We're not just clerical data. We actually have more responsibility than most people acknowledge.
Now, one question that I would have, Christina, is like the concept that they talked about in the book where they talked about for the symphony, and when the person goes to try out, and having the person not wear shoes and having a man walk next to a lady, that, you know, how would that look if didn't even know based upon the name or, you know, this is John or this is Sally, you know, if we didn't even know if it was male or female, black, white, brown, Asian, or what, you know, how would that factor into our hiring process?
That's a good point.
I agree.
Have y'all ever done a blind, the blind process where you just have the people, you don't know if they're male, female, and pick our HR did some training and we would pick our perfect candidate based off of what was on. I'm just going to tell you right now, I hired an Asian lady with hot pink hair. And it was the point was, you know, the city, I mean, we have certain, you can't have hot pink hair and work for the city, but it was like, it made us stop and think about the fact that we're not even looking at people that don't fit into our city's mold. And that was whenever I came back and said, but wait a second, she was more qualified for her job than, you know, she could have had my job, but no, she had hot pink hair. So we had a big discussion about it because, you know, our city is very strict on tattoos and things like that. So I think maybe the culture is changing, but that was a pretty interesting.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
Kind of like a glacier melting.
That would be a great chapter training tool.
Mm.
Oh, absolutely. It was, it took all of us back. Even our HR director was like, wow, you're bringing, because we all ended up bringing them somebody that we would have never, number one, we would have never gotten past a first interview because of something.
Tool is, because I'll take it to chapters.
And I think that's interesting too, because we're hiring for diversity, then we want them to conform to our ways.
Yes.
I loved that chapter title.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh my goodness.
Are you
It's just like the tattoos? Our city has always had a strict tattoo policy. Well, now we have a new city manager and we have a new police chief, and he's like, you know what? If you're a good officer, I don't care. Well, now sometimes I give him a hard time. I'm like, I can't tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. That sounds like something my grandmother would say, because we have officers that have full sleeves.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, like when she was in the nursing home, she did not want a nurse taking care of her that had a tattoo because she thought they were drug people. And she would tell you that. So, you know, our culture is changing and the way we look at things is a lot different talking about our grandmothers than it is. But some of these officers, man, they went nuts with it. They come in, they're interesting.
That's cool. All right. What about 23? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I said, I always tell them, you better hope we don't get another chief that doesn't share.
Yeah, then what? Everybody gonna be wearing long sleeve shirts.
Yeah.
What's the difference between positive and negative illusion, and how does it affect critical feedback?
Positive illusion.
I think Rosabelle, I think you mentioned this
Yeah,
earlier.
that's what I was gonna say. The positive illusion, you're likely to hear positive about yourself first, and negative illusion, you're likely to hear negative about yourself initially, and then you internalize it. That's what Rosabelle was just talking about.
Men hear the positive stuff first, whereas women have a tendency to hear and internalize the negative stuff first.
Yeah, so they showed the men like a picture of what body image he thought he had, and he picked one better, whereas a woman picked one worse. And I thought, that's so me. I would have just been like, no, that's me over here. And the man is just, nope, I look like that. That's right. That's right, Kent.
Men.
That just made me think.
You can't take a dude anywhere.
Well, now I know why my son, when I say you can only play Minecraft 15 minutes, says, you said 20, right, Mom? Yeah. I'm like, no, I said 15. No, you said 20. You said 20. I heard you.
I trick you. Like, no, I heard you say 15.
They hear.
Yeah.
That's a problem. All right. Number 24. Name 5 mentoring pitfalls. What is a mentor? What kind of trouble can you get yourself, or what do people think they can get yourself into? 5 mentoring pitfalls and the meaning.
Negative stereotypes.
A risk of picking someone who's.
Risk. Have you ever gotten someone a job and they bombed it?
Yeah. No.
So embarrassing.
Yes.
It's a risk to your reputation.
Especially when you thought they were just like you.
Yeah.
Yes.
You pick them for their sameness. And they blew it.
And then you find out they're not like you.
No.
You're like, oops.
Yeah.
In fact, right before we got onto this Zoom, I don't know if y'all could tell I was talking, but I was talking to the assistant police chief, and he is hiring one of my employees to be a police officer. And I said, I stake my reputation on this guy. And then you just said that, and I'm like, yeah,
there's a risk.
Yeah, there's a risk, but you know what? People are worth a risk.
Yeah. I have 3 ex-employees that are court administrators in other cities now. So, but also I've had one who bombed. So I'm 3 for 1. That's
Not like that.
It ain't too bad. But I'm just saying there are risks to mentoring. So we're talking about how we're mentoring, we're going to teach, and we're going to help people go in a different direction. But we need to realize that there are risks involved.
But the rewards outweigh
rewards
that. So
Absolutely.
much.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And then you have, some people, it talks about resentment. Like, why is the mentee getting all this special attention from the boss? So be real careful with your chosen. It's better, I think, to take somebody as a mentor outside of your immediate environment because one of that, try not to play teacher's pet or favorites, or, we have a pretty clear succession plan here. So everybody knows there's one person that's under my wing because she go and take my job, which is perfectly fine. But then you still have to resentment develop. Why does she get to be the one that's going to take your job when you leave? Why don't I get to be the one to take your job? Because it's not always.
You don't want it.
No, but they don't know that, and I have to keep that a secret. It's not always length of tenure. It's not always the person who's been here the longest. I don't do it that way. I do it by ability, not by tenure. So stuff to think about when you're mentoring and choosing to mentor. There are some risks, but please don't not do it because the rewards are even better.
Yeah.
What do indirect speakers focus on when they communicate? We got 4 minutes, ladies.
Relationship.
Group accomplishments.
Females are more.
Everyone is included.
Mm-hmm.
Lengthy explanations.
And then
focus on relationships.
Amy mentioned earlier, sometimes direct speakers are seen as cold.
Hey, I'm gonna mute myself so you can talk.
Exclusionary and cold, and we're not. I mean, those of us who speak directly, we don't ever have an intention to sound cold or calculating. We got things to do, so we got to say this quick.
They call us the B word.
Yeah. And it's not that we don't care about you, or it's just usually, and I know for me, and it's probably true for a lot of us that are in this, we're one step ahead of ourselves. So I got to get this said because I got to be over there and say something else. So, so we're direct only because, well, we just are. That's who we are. Grandma told us to be that way. We just are who we are.
But when I don't have to be that way, I try to.
It's difficult. I do. I make sure that I say one nice thing to everybody in here every day.
Oh, crap.
Like outside of the norm. One, do you know?
Tammy, you're behind the 8 ball.
Tammy, I have to keep a checklist so I make sure I get everyone covered because the one person I miss on one day is going to know it.
Can I hit you? Can I do the you guys are awesome? Can I just kind of hit everybody at once?
Individual, everybody every day gets at least one positive affirmation. But man, you better keep a checklist because if you miss somebody, everybody knows it. Say nothing nice to you today.
Your job is on the line. She didn't say something nice to you.
I love you. Every one of you. Everyone. I think I've mentioned most of you by name at least once today. I tried really hard. So people like to hear their name, but doesn't matter to me if I hear my name, so I forget that I'm supposed to do that. So that's one of my goals to work on right now is calling people by name. A nice name, like their name.
Oh.
What are the terrible twos? I really like this answer.
When you tell somebody you're too whatever, it's an unconscious way of evaluating someone who isn't acting how you act, how you would expect.
You're too feminine for a guy. You're too masculine.
Too aggressive, too assertive.
When they act outside their expected role, or what you think that they.
What your thoughts are of their role, what their role should be.
Yeah.
You're too old to be acting like that, or you're too young to be acting like that,
or dressed that way, or
the terrible twos.
Yeah. Or even you're too nice.
Samantha, you're too nice. See, Samantha's popping in.
Get that all the time. You're too nice.
Never get that. Never. I need some tips from Samantha. Maybe I'll call her when we're done.
No, you don't want to be too nice. You just want to be nice.
Oh, you don't?
Everybody here, before we close today, tell me what you two are. What's your 2?
Too
I'm too
blunt.
loud.
I'm too blunt.
Too glossy.
Too soft spoken.
Yeah, I get that.
You gotta choose your own, Samantha. You can use that one in 2.
I get I'm too nice. That's what I get all the time.
Too laid back.
Mara, what's your
Say too late back too.
Oh goodness, I'm just two.
Like, I'm just 2.
Naomi is, oh, she is just two.
Are you 2 anything, Tina?
I think I'm just too Southern raw.
She's too
maybe.
Texan.
Too Texan. They call
Yeah.
me two step and
And that
Texan.
has its
you know?
own set of things that people think when they think you're too Texan.
And I'm not even born here. I was born in New Mexico.
Jeez.
Karen, do you have a 2? What are you 2?
Who'd you ask?
Karen.
I said laid back.
Too laid back. Christina?
I get told I'm too patient, especially with somebody at the window or on the phone. That's like, no, come on, hurry up. And I'm like, no, I've got 22 years worth of customer service experience. I know how to help take that escalated person who is absolutely upset for whatever good or bad reason they're upset. And I can sit there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get you to the point that I can work with you. You're not going to get under my skin, and I can listen to that person or the rambler. They got to say it 3 times. 3 is the magic time. After that 3rd time, you can start to cut them off, and then we can work.
Yep, you're too
Yeah,
patient.
I've been told I'm too patient.
There's a sign on my door that says patience is just a waste of time. Dottie, what are you?
I need that sign. Where'd you get it from? Amazon?
Yeah, no, I got it somewhere. It's got Audrey Hepburn on it, and she's just sitting there being cool.
I would agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong.
Dottie, what are you 2?
I'm too quiet.
You are quiet, not too quiet, just quiet. I think Sana, did you 2? You're muted.
Too protective.
Too protective.
Very protective.
Cool. Supportive is another way maybe to think about that.
Yeah.
And
They call me Mama Bear around here.
Angelica, did we get a 2?
I think people would say I'm too quiet, but I think I just choose when I want to speak, and I think it makes it more effective when I do speak.
Good for you, Angelica. That was very well thought.
Is it because you're observant? You like scoping everything out?
Yeah.
All right, Landra, the president of TCCA, we're going to leave you for the last 2. What are you 2?
I'm told that I'm too busy. My husband tells me that all the time. And I know that with Pat and Tammy and the association, we tend not to say no. And then, or we get voluntold, and then things come up at work and it's like, well, I really haven't done anything for my city that actually pays me. So I'll volunteer for that. And then before you know it, it's like I'm volunteering on my vacation days. And so I'm not complaining. My husband is, no, but he does. He says that a lot. You're too busy. You've got too much going on.
Did I get everybody? Did everybody tell me what they were?
You didn't do yourself.
I'm too demanding.
I'm kind of like Mara. Tammy, what are you 2?
Demanding.
Yeah.
I set the bar pretty high for myself and everybody else. So.
What am I? I'm too loud. And
So is rock music, and we all love it.
I get told often my expectations are too high.
Yeah, that's probably what mine would be too. Expectations are too high.
Amazing to me that people tell me that and then meet them. It's like, maybe you just need to push it a little bit. So. All right, ladies and gents, the next session is posted. If you got into this one and cannot get into that one, you just need to email me. You get a privilege of being in this one to get in the next one. I will put you in on the back end because, as you can see, some people don't make it. The 4th one will be posted soon. And then that's the end of A. There's 4, so you're halfway through A. And then we'll do B and C after that. They will be posted online. The recordings will be posted as soon as we get them edited and before, the end of A. So if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, you know how to get a hold of me. I'm out there. I'm too out there. I'm everywhere. But just kind of hang in there and keep plugging in there. And every one of you, I have no doubt in my entire mind, will be a level 3 clerk at one point, and I can't wait to see that. So we can come do our cool little ceremonial stuff and welcome you to the fold. I mean, you're not telling us nah, right? You're telling somebody else nah? Okay, good. She's like, she better not be telling me nah. Okay.
No.
Now,
right.
since I'm just observing, I just wanted to say this has been very enjoyable. Pat's been telling me about how much fun the last one was, and I'm going to be doing one later on in the series, but I wanted to see how y'all did it. I think this is awesome. I wish that when I was going through level 3, we would have had this, because there was one book that I hated, and I think this group could have helped me get through it. But anyway, keep on your journey, and congratulations on all of you for doing what you're doing and working hard. Level 3 is a big deal, and we appreciate your participation and everything.
Don't forget us at conference. As soon as registration comes out, I want to see your beautiful faces. And you can get 20 hours of that 40 you need for certification or whatever. So, you know, you need the extra ones you need outside of assessment clinic. So you'll be good to go. So cool beans.
Pat, I have a question.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Shelby.
Where do we get the I guess the certificates for these for TMCC?
It'll be on the TCCA website under education certificates. Go under education. It's where you see all the certificates. It's sponsored by the education committee, and that's where they are. It's not.
Oh, okay, I went to the Gulf Coast. It's probably
No, yeah, we're not. It's not Gulf. This one's sponsored by the education committee, so we have our own
Okay.
little tab. If
Got
you
it.
can't find one, let me know, and I'll make sure you can get one.
Okay. I
Cool.
see the other one.
Guys, good to see you all.
Thank you. Y'all have a great
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good
Y'all
week.
have a good weekend.
Too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.